Ah, yes, it is that time once again where we get a new, hyped up game that is on the cusp of releasing, and we ask the one question that's on everyone's mind: is this game going to be an esport? In case you may not know, I'm Golden Boy. I'm a professional esports commentator and host, and I've worked events across games like Overwatch, Call of Duty, Halo, PUBG, Fortnite, etc., etc., etc. So I would like to think that I have a very good grasp on what it means to make a competitive game into an esport. I would like to think that I understand the recipe for success. I'm not a genius, and thankfully, I was invited by Riot Games to try out their new tactical FPS shooter Valorant in an online boot camp, which, by the way, is like the coolest thing ever. And I'll get into that in another video. So thank you, Riot, for the invitation. All the footage that you see here today was captured in those sessions, and I played a lot of games, because let me tell you, that game was fun. So the question that we're going to ask today is very simple. Will Valorant be the next big esport? And the answer is yes and no. In fact, there's actually a lot of nuance to it. I'm sorry if I got your hopes up there, but let's just go ahead and let's discuss. You see, esports is an interesting beast because oftentimes a game will release and it will immediately grab the attention of the competitive audience. These are folks who live and breathe competitive multiplayer games, not games that are necessarily esports, because not every competitive game is an esport. But, you know, and when we talk about esports, you discuss games like Overwatch, CS, or League of Legends, or Dota, etc., etc. Because there are a lot of games that are inherently competitive, but are not intended to be an esport at the beginning. For example, like Battle Royales. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Golden Boy, didn't you cast a few Battle Royale games? And yes, I do, and I still do. And I think Battle Royale is an awesome concept for a competitive game because the idea is so simple. You take 100+ people, you put them in some arbitrary location, and you have them beat the crap out of each other until the last person's left alive. That's such a sick concept. Why wouldn't it not work? Well, because there's a lot of nuance when it comes to making a game not only competitive, but also watchable by a wide audience. You have to retain the competitive integrity, but also balance it with this entertainment factor that sometimes can be a little challenging depending on the format of your competition. And that's something that Battle Royale really hasn't nailed down yet, because the game has so many layers to measure who is the best player that won that competition. And in fact, the best format that I've seen out there is the winner-take-all point threshold format that Apex Legends introduced in Katowice. It was fun to watch, and it led to an ultimate winner, which is something that you want to see in a Battle Royale game. The thing is, it doesn't necessarily translate to every single game. Even then, we still dared to take on the high seas and make Battle Royale into an esport, and let me tell you, it succeeded. And floundered. It depends on which game you follow, and we'll dive into that probably in another video. Let me know if you want that in the comment section down below. So how does all this craziness relate to Riot Games' new tactical shooter, Valorant? Well, it's a very watchable game. Just like its older cousin Counter-Strike, this game takes a lot of nods from Counter-Strike, by the way. The concept is super simple. Team 1 has to plant a bomb, and Team 2 has to defend their bomb sites. Through the use of ingenuity, creativity, planning, you must scratch and claw your way to victory. How you get there is a whole different story, and that's where Valorant actually takes some nods from its more colorful cousins like Overwatch, Apex Legends, Team Fortress 2. You know, the cousins that you sometimes see at your barbecue and you're like, kind of like you, but you're a little annoying. Sorry to whatever cousin I may have offended, by the way. That was not intended for you. Totally. Each character, known as agents, have a unique set of abilities that could be used to achieve victory. And you obtain those abilities as well as weapons and armor each round, depending on whether you won the previous round, how many other players you eliminated, etc. It's a very simple story that can be told for casters like myself. And it's because of that reason that the game is on track to be a big player in the esports world. To go in a different direction, look at Rocket League. That game is deceptively simple, but yet it is layered with complexity. It is welcoming for the whole family. Unlike CSGO, And that's something that Valorant has an advantage over Counter-Strike on. Valorant is not a game that uses real-world weapons and a theme of terrorists versus counter-terrorists. In fact, you don't even have to show blood if you don't want to, nor dead bodies. And Riot added those options, which I actually really like. And it's one of the reasons why I think Overwatch appeals to a wide variety of people and sponsors, because it is welcoming and it's a little cartoony. It doesn't rely on controversial themes like Counter-Strike and Call of Duty, which really fall back on the aesthetic of war in the real world. Now, there's been a lot of positivity here so far, and this is the internet, so we can't be positive for too long. We gotta balance it out a little bit. So on the flip side, why is Valorant on track to not be the biggest esport in the world? And this one connects to the great question that every single esport tries to ask itself. What will it take for us to get more viewers? What will it take for us to be able to pull people away from these other games and get them to watch our game instead? Because Valorant is going to be coming out in the middle of a wild pack of games that have huge audiences, that have great viewership across the board, and it is going to be a minefield out there for Valorant, and they're going to have to try and tippy-toe their way to growth. That will be very, very challenging for them to be able to execute on. Valorant sits in a weird spot between games like Counter-Strike and Overwatch. And Counter-Strike is one of the richest histories in all of gaming and esports. And then you have Overwatch, which has a super dedicated fan base of players as well as fans that enjoy the Overwatch League. So you're really going to be wrestling for a lot of people's attention here. And Overwatch is also a game that tells their fans, if you're not a good aimer, that's okay. Much to the dismay of the hardcore, but that is the reality of Overwatch. In fact, Riot has stated publicly that they want Valorant to be a competitive game first and foremost. So you're really talking to a core group right out of the gate. Whereas Overwatch did everything in their power to get fans invested in the heroes and in the world and giving them rich backstories. Riot is no slouch though when it comes to this, by the way. The work that they've done over the years with League of Legends and building up Runeterra and everything that they've managed to accomplish is certainly something that gets me excited to see where Valorant goes. But as of right now, they aren't really leaning in that direction, more so as they're telling people this is a competitive game. If you are not in it to win it, then get out. And maybe that seems a little harsh, and in fact it probably is, but I know that there are a lot of casual people, for example on the Valorant subreddit, that feel like maybe this game might not be for them, and you want the casual audience to be into your game, because that's actually how you get people to be invested in your esport. Not every competitive player is into esports, and not every casual fan is into esports. So you want to try and broaden your horizons to attract this crowd from both sides of the table to be invested in your esport. And if you're immediately telling one out of the gate, listen, you can play, but this game's going to be challenging and you might get your ass bopped, that will certainly turn some people away. Despite that, I remain optimistic on Valorant because this, I think, could open up a whole new generation of fans to the tactical, hardcore FPS genre that I think for the longest time has kind of been ignored. And even for fans like myself who missed the Counter-Strike train years ago, I'm excited because I feel like this is going to be a whole new journey for people to take on. And there's still one big, massive, gigantic thing to consider, and that is the international audience. Counter-Strike is a big game here in the United States, but it's even bigger in Europe, and it has a massive audience in South America. But there's one region where Counter-Strike really hasn't been all that dominant in, and that is Asia. Games like Crossfire, Sudden Attack, PUBG, even Overwatch have broken through to the Asian audience, but there's still one game, one title that has risen above them all, and it is League of Legends. And you know who makes League of Legends? Riot Games, the creators of Valorant. Would you look at that? They have a lot of trust in the region, and they're committed to making this game run on a toaster. So if anyone has a toaster that can play a video game, please let me know, because I genuinely want to see that. Also, not losing track here, they have this system where the game can run on virtually any kind of machine you throw at it, whether it's the low spec craziness or the high spec gods. This game will run beautifully. They don't want hardware to be a limiting factor, but they also don't want fans to feel like they're missing out on this unique world because of low settings and whether or not the game will look good. And by going in this direction, you're actually appealing to a lot of people all over the world, because even for folks like myself, I didn't have a computer until I was in my late 20s, and even then it wasn't a good computer. So imagine how many other individuals out there are just like me and cannot have the best looking games because their computers are not good enough. This is a thing that could potentially lead to the game blowing up. And even a Western game like Overwatch managed to break through that Asian market and prove to us that that market plays shooters. They are invested in Western shooters, not just games like Sudden Attack and Crossfire, but they're into games that come from the States. And even games like PUBG, which have seen a decline here in the United States and even parts of Europe, still continues to thrive in Asia. The potential for Valorant is global market appeal, but sometimes spreading yourself a little too thin could be your undoing. So what do you think? Do you think that Valorant is going to be the biggest esport in the world? Let me know in the comments and let's discuss. Don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel for more Valorant esports content, and also check out my podcast, That Esports Podcast, where I have DDK and Zeronic from CSGO and Rainbow Six communities respectively, talking about Valorant, its competitive future, and what we can expect, and whether or not they had fun with the game. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.